34. You want to go to old business or start with approve minutes first? Somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes from March 12th?
So moved.
Any discussion? How about second? How do you do it?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve minutes from March 6th.
The amended motion. The amended minutes.
From March 26th.
And the amended minutes are the ones with the little lines on the left-hand side.
Oh, wait. Can you pass those around?
One of them is corrected, the other one is the original.
One has a line on the side on the bottom.
That's what we got.
There are two sets of minutes from the 26th. The amended
Do you want to go down there? No, I need the agenda. Where's the agenda? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, thank you.
They all
Are there any more copies of the amended minutes?
Those are the same ones that are emailed, right? Did Alan send the amended to everything?
Are there any more?
Oh, yeah.
See if they got stuff down there. Yes. Be possible down. You need the amended. There's a line on the side in front. Yeah. Oh, there's there.
Yeah, there's two copies. Little line on it. We did a second. Second.
Did we have a
Second
first?
motion. Yeah, somebody did a motion.
Well, I didn't hear from you.
Okay, yes, we can.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 26th, as amended.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
all right, all in favor? Aye. I abstain.
Are you seeing for both of those? That and you are
Jennifer.
second.
Nice job on the minutes, Elaine. Nice, you captured good conversation here.
DEP update?
DEP update. We did get a letter back from DEP on March 27th, basically asking for us to confirm the capacities of the two septic systems that are here on this site. And we have gotten a proposal from Berkshire Design Group, who's a civil engineer on a project to do that work, to do the investigative work that DEP is looking for. It's for $5,100. Chris and I had talked about that and approved that to go forward. So they're coming out and starting their investigation. As soon as they can get that information, get it back to DEP, and hopefully we can get a determination once they have that information in hand.
And that investigation will be done on April 24th. I spoke with Alan Weiss from Cold Spring Environmental, who's going to do the work for Berkshire
Very good.
today.
Great.
So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it all comes out good. We also did, while we're somewhat on the same subject, is we did authorize Berkshire Group to do perk tests for both sites, the site here and also the site for West Street School. There's a season that ends at the end of April where if you don't do your percolation test after that, you miss the opportunity. We rolled the dice and said, let's just do it on West Street for the $1,800 it was going to cost, just in case. So I think that was just good insurance to spend at this point in time in case something happens here and we decide to go back to West Street.
Just to confirm something, the determination on the 24th of April, that's by Berkshire, or is it the DEP response to us?
So, yeah, Berkshire needs to bring DEP out on site so they can see exactly what Berkshire sees, i.e. that the system was installed per plans. So that's one piece of this puzzle. The other part Judy is helping us with, and that is the enrollment for the year in which the school was built, East Meadow was built. We have close years. We also need faculty and staff members, so I'll touch base with you on that. So of the things that were in the letter that Alan mentioned, we're making progress on getting the answers.
So is it fair to say that the DEP response probably will not be anytime before May? Is that?
Will it be quick?
I would guess early May, maybe, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can never guess
Yeah.
for DEP, it's tough.
So no plans have still never been found?
Plans have been
are
found,
found.
yeah.
Plans have been found?
It's the permit. So in order of most desirable information for DEP, the sanitary permit was number one, and everyone has turned everything over and not been able to locate it, including the DEP. Number two is the number of occupants the system was designed for students and faculty in 1965. So we have years close. The next, if we don't have that,
And we did find out that it was designed for more than we are talking about.
yeah,
So that's a good thing.
significantly more.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign. And then in lieu of that, it's a year close to when it was put in.
Yeah.
So I think that's-
1969 was what we were able to find,
Okay.
and that was back when Westover was a fully functioning military base, and there were several families living in Granby, so the student population was much higher at that time.
So we're cautiously optimistic.
And we found this, or Jennifer found the specs on the original school.
Oh.
We can pull those
I
out.
remember looking through that for years.
Yeah.
They're holding up the mess.
That's what we scanned, and these are
Yeah.
the specs that were in there, and we scanned to you the other day, so.
Can we borrow those?
The only one member of the
Berkshire
building
Berkshire Design might
building
want to
committee
see
still
them.
alive,
Yeah.
that's blue shirt.
Chain of custody.
Yeah.
I don't think he's back from Florida yet.
His wife is on her neck.
Okay.
I know, you gotta be very
You need the
careful.
gloves.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear
It's
that.
interesting. All the figures are handwritten in there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fascinating.
I believe they call it typewriter.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah.
It predates the IBM Selector.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So that's where we are with DEP. Any questions on it?
All right. Do you have anything else?
DEP.
Preferred schematic design, that's kind of what I was thinking.
On preferred schematic design, that's what we want to talk about today.
Okay.
That you've had the 7 options that have been presented to you, and you've been thinking about them, mulling them over. What we'd like to do is have the design team review those with you today and start dialogue and make assumptions, if we can, that we are probably going to be able to stay on the site, unforgiven, depending on what DEP comes back with. But let's make that assumption and make some determinations of a direction to go forward with dialogue on these different options tonight.
And what we thought we'd do is go through, now, we are only focusing on East Meadow, on this site tonight, because it was agreed that we wouldn't consider West Street at this point. So what we'd like to do is do the pros and cons from you. Hear what you see as the pros and the cons of each of the 3 options that are connected to East Meadow Street School or this site. Okay, so
Hurry.
We'll refresh your memory as to
Yeah.
which solution is what.
okay,
You're about to see here.
this is the ad reno scheme, and we studied the structure a little bit more and came to the recommendation, but we also realized that the previous option had a conflict with the site plan. So let me start back at the site plan. This is the addition that would be on East Meadow here. And now we've evolved the site plan to allow for a separate parent drop-off loop here, and then a bus drop-off for 7 spaces on this lane, so that there'd be one entrance, one student entrance into the school here. The other scheme seemed to drop off kids in 2 different places, and that wasn't a good idea. So here there'll be, and we'll keep the parent cars separate from the buses, which is always a good idea. So this would be the front door, and this would be the service lane. So we took a look at things and are recommending that you keep the cafeteria where it is. Because what we want to be able to do is, if this scheme is preferred, that you would occupy East Meadow as if nothing was happening, and you'd have a construction fence here, and you'd build the whole new part, the pre-K through 3, basically, here, and then you could move these kids into the new part, do the renovation, and then in the last phase, bring West Street into the new part. So, given that phasing is a very expensive piece of doing a school project, we thought that it would be best to keep the service entrance where it is, keep the cafeteria and the kitchen and the platform the way it is, and so that was a change. We used to have the kindergarten over there. So this way, this is essentially a pre-K through 3, and this is, well, actually it's pre-K through 2, and we fit the 3rd grade into East Meadow. So otherwise, we kept it the same with the media center where the gym is now at the right size, 2,900. Oh, let me just say that the cafeteria, instead of having 2 shifts or whatever you call it, 2 lunches, you'd have to have 3 for the full amount. But I don't know if you have that now.
We currently have 3 now.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be any different.
1 per grade.
Yeah. Well, it would be 2 grades.
Right, that would be more, but we
Yeah.
have the 3 lunches currently.
Right. And this is a nice space, and it's a nice stage, so it seemed like you could save money by keeping that the way it is.
And make it accessible.
Right. It would have to be accessible for sure. But we did keep the new courtyard where the library is now, because structurally it's a bearing wall around the edge, so it's not difficult to do. And that brings daylight into the rather heavily packed building. So let's see. So now with this, you'd come in the front door. Administration is right at the front door. Then the gym would be right off the main entry. Gym with storage and custodial toilets and a planning room. Then this becomes the 2 pre-K classrooms, so they'd be supervised as you come in. And 1st grade, well, kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade are all around in this new part with special ed and planning sprinkled in. And again, this is conceptual. This is we just need you to prefer one scheme over the other, and then you'll see lots of tweaks and improvements as we go, hopefully. So by doing this, we actually got the new part to be a little bit smaller by making the cafeteria in the existing part. But otherwise, we've fulfilled the program, and you end up with another hallway in through, so there's circulation all the way around. And basically 2 courtyards.
Can you remind me again, what option is that? Is that 5A?
This is called, well, we called it 5B because it's a little bit different than the original 5.
Okay, so we're going to refer to that later as 5B. Got it.
We've been tinkering with it based on the conversations we've had at these meetings. Can you make it less expensive?
Yeah.
Can you? And just to reiterate that point, we're not touching any of the bearing walls. So what was in the PDP, we probably had a little more demolition and rebuild. But what has evolved through A and now B is that concept that we will not touch bearing walls.
Okay.
But so these are important structural walls, but here there are movable walls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, it's already got a beam in there, so that's why we could do this kind of group, collective space there.
And how much would this cost?
Well, we haven't revised the costs. The order of magnitude was in the previous chart, and I think that that's the best way to go. I mean, this is the middle price scheme.
3, and the square footage has gone down a bit too. So again, until we can look at it more closely and apply some costs, this one is going to go down cost-wise.
Yeah.
Mario, it's hard for me to see, but does this, no, you don't need to move it, I'll just ask a question. Don't worry about it. Does this result in is this considered one building? Or is it 2 buildings?
It's one building.
Okay, so then there could be, if we ever decide down the road to share administrative support, things of that nature, under one umbrella, that could work for us. Okay.
And I'm assuming that there's one like nursing area, like clinic as well.
Yes, that's all in the
shared clinic.
admin part. Yep. Yeah, it would be one school.
Yep.
Right. One gym, one CAF, one media center of
Well,
the proper size.
My reaction is it's good thinking. I think, I'm glad you guys sort of heard what we said in prior meetings. And
My other question would be, and I'm not an architect, but I think the present library there is probably one of the nicest spaces in that building. So I'm just curious as to why we'd want to remove that and make a courtyard when it's, and I know you need extra room to make the bathrooms around that, which I think we still have, but then I'm just talking like a general architect. Why you would want to move the library? If that'd be another way to maybe save some costs.
Well, the media center, that would be woefully undersized if we kept it there. So you'd end up, to make it big enough, you'd have to kind of expand.
But you could go towards the office way, present office way.
Bearing walls.
Yeah, these are
No
bearing
kidding.
walls.
Yeah, bearing wall. It would be costly to expand that space.
so you created a new media center that's a little bit bigger, and then you replaced it with.
Yeah, we put the media center in the gym, which is exactly the right size. I mean, MSBA wants you to have a 2,900 square foot media center. The gym is 2,900 square feet, so it just, and it's half the size that you should have for a gym.
I have a quick question. On the, where the cafeteria is, and what is called platform, I'm assuming that's the stage that
Yeah.
currently exists, is that the same size as it is today?
Yes.
In your plan? Was there an opportunity to make that space a little larger? I'm only asking because in the past the only place where we could have our plays and some of the activities was at the cafeteria. And when you really try to squeeze in so many chairs, not even comfortable seats, but chairs, it fills up fairly quickly, and the distance from the stage is so small that you can't really squeeze in more than a certain number of people.
Right.
So I was wondering whether there was, even keeping the same space, there is a way to reconfigure to allow a little better seating within that cafeteria. Just to let you know what we're doing with it at times. Maybe it might become an option in your future considerations.
But we have to also take into consideration like all school assemblies.
Right.
Like even when we have like all the kids in there, with just the grades that we currently have, it can get pretty tight. We have an award ceremony at the end of the year, and parents are invited, and people are heading out the doors.
Yeah.
It's so crowded.
Should we have this? Yeah, we could put the stage onto the gym.
Something that was in the Frank Walker conversations of where that could be. We had a lot of conversation around that.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be a couple of opportunities.
And that would just mean that well, either you could expand the cafeteria by taking the platform down, which would make it more to MSBA's liking, and then put a stage there. Should I mark it up? Is that a general?
Well, you could
approval?
keep the platform the way it is.
Or you could
Or
keep the platform
keep
for
it.
smaller performances, yeah.
Well, but with all those more,
You may need that
the more
space, though.
children in the school and only one cafeteria, don't you need more cafeteria space to fit in?
Well,
All
I'm
the
not sure what
lunches?
the requirements are, but that was something else I was thinking of. I mean, that's a different conversation in the platform space, but yeah, I mean, I guess
But
But you'd use the platform space as cafeteria space.
that, I guess, I'm
Well,
not,
I don't know. You
I don't know
didn't
about
mark
that. Yeah.
It's like a restaurant.
You need- Well, I did the math, you divide by 15, and then you get how many kids you can seat in each seat.
And so that was a reasonable amount with the amount of
Yeah.
students.
And the number of lunch periods you might have to go to. Yeah.
I think
Right.
one of the pros for me is the traffic flow on the site and also the ability to sort of have a traffic flow between the two buildings by having the two access corridors. That's a pro of this design for me.
I think another pro is that it's considered one building, and that we solve for grades pre-K through 6 in one fell swoop.
I think another pro is that you get more reimbursement back from MSBA for an additional remodel than you do if it was just a brand new building.
I think another pro to this is that we have an opportunity to bring this building up to the 21st century at 50% on the dollar from the state. And I think that's a plus to the voters to know that we're now not going to be coming back to them looking like we did a month ago, saying we need $83,000 to fix something here, and we're paying 100%. If we renovate this building, we have an opportunity, so I know it's a little bit more money than we all want, but it's 50 cents on the dollar, and this entire building is going to be in the 21st century. I would have a hard time going to the voters and tell them that when your student comes here through pre-K through the second grade, they're going to be in the 21st century. Then when they walk up that corridor, you're going back to the 20th century. I have a hard time with that. I think we have this opportunity to get this thing building up to code here and up to the 21st century for everybody through the 6th grade. And I personally would like to take an opportunity to go to the voters and say that.
I think you're going to have a better, well, I don't know if this is true, but I think you'd have a better security environment if you were to take care of pre-K through 6, because it's going to be a better setup than what's over there now. And I'm assuming as you build out, you're going to have the ability to create sort of state-of-the-art security that is needed in today's world, unfortunately.
Question on the outside a little more. Where are the playgrounds for this?
Behind.
They're to the side, to the east, and this could be the young playground. And then there's lots of space back there. But there's a hard surface play and
So those two orange areas are both
Yeah.
playgrounds?
and maybe you'd have a covered play.
That's good.
Center
Well,
of the
and
ring.
I think, again, that's another pro of the design is to be able to have age-appropriate equipment in two different areas.
And yet a teacher could actually monitor
Correct.
them, if not a lot of personnel.
A pro would be the size of the gym, and what is the size of that gym as pictured there?
6,000 square feet.
But we're going to get that in any design, is that true? or-
That was true.
Okay.
How does that compare to like, I know it's bigger than East Meadows, but how does it compare to like a high school gym? Is that a full-size court, basketball court?
It's not an adult court, which would be 10,000 or 12,000 square feet, but it's enough for adult rec play. And I think you call it a junior high.
I think we should need to consider, because it's on the same side of the high school, we only have one full-size gym in the community, that here's our opportunity to get another full-size gym. I'm not talking bleachers for, 500
Right.
people, but at least a playing court that,
I thought the playing court was full-size, but there wouldn't be as much bleacher space. I thought that was, and this refresh my memory, but is that not the case?
I thought it was like Moser. I don't think
Yeah.
Which
I
Which
is,
is
don't
a
think it
full-size
is. I
court.
think
It's
it's,
a full-size course like 65 or 95, something like that. I mean, this is probably 10 or 12 feet shorter. Old guys like you and I wouldn't know the difference. We'd be happy to run that distance. But it is a little shorter.
so should we show a stage, how I think of it? On the,
The thought that came to my mind with the stage would be that if we were to have something where people were coming in from the outside, I know the acoustics in a gym might not be as good as the acoustics in a cafeteria, but one plus to having a stage off of the gym would be that if people are coming in from the outside, it's accessible like right to the main entrance versus having them walk through the school. Just
Yeah.
a consideration.
and we'd probably have it here.
And of course, it's bigger, so you'd be able to fit more people, because now when we have assemblies in our cafeteria on that stage, it's always very, very crowded. And that stage is well-loved, but it's also well-worn. I know some people who looked into getting the curtains replaced, the theater curtains replaced, and we're talking like $20,000-$30,000 or something like that.
Fire retardant.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a bad idea to scrap the old stage and get a new stage somewhere, like Ms. Champagne suggested in the gym. Portable stage. I don't know if there's such a thing.
Yes.
Oh, there
There is.
There are, yeah.
Portable stage that could be eliminated when there's a.
basketball court is 94 feet long by 50 feet wide
Yeah.
for a total of 4,700 square feet.
So that's a full-size court, and then
That's the court. That's the court. It's not. So it would be a full-size court, but
Yeah, okay, but no,
Ability to,
right. No bleachers.
yeah.
Well, 54 wide, because usually this is 50 by 120 or something.
I think we
Yeah.
We could make it so that.
we have to find a way to have a full.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the footprint of the new school, though, so the new park, so you could.
Yeah, so that adds square footage
You
to
could
it.
stretch it 5 feet if you needed to.
Yeah, well, if it's 47, we can make it work.
how much is that right now? I'm sorry. How much is square footage is that?
It's 6,000.
Okay.
Didn't you say 4,700? Yeah, so it should fit.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's it's the bleachers. I think you're right. It's
space.
it's
And
just
you won't
like
have
Mosier,
the, you know,
yeah, 94 by 50.
Mosier School.
The middle school.
so
Whatever
add
the one across.
add 10 to the width and
Is that what it
and
is?
20
I think
to
it's
the
the
length.
Middle school.
The middle school.
So
The one with the
60
brown brick.
by.
The brown brick one, where that is.
So I'd say a con of this design is that the stage is not, it's the same. The cafeteria and the stage is the same, and that's kind of a bummer.
Now, say if we're on the gym with that platform from
I know, but
design and
of this
cafeteria.
design, a con of this design.
Well, we could look into expanding the caf, yes, or leaving it there for smaller performances.
Could you expand it, where would you expand it? Out
Well,
on
you
the
take
outside
the
wall?
platform out and move the cafeteria in. So then it becomes 3,000 square feet, which I think is what would allow for 2 seating.
The courtyard that was created instead of the current library, does it serve any other purpose other than just bringing some light, or could it be used for other purposes as well?
It could be an exterior classroom, it could be, pull-out space. Yeah, it definitely should be used. We would want it to be used.
Just a note on that, though, interior courtyards that don't have easy access. I'm not seeing anything that's going to be able to get in there that could cut grass.
Yeah, they're hard to maintain.
The other
I
ones,
know.
the other one has, you could have doors that would open up to bring a lawnmower through, or.
Yeah, here,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But
right.
that little one up there does present a problem in terms of what does it become. I've seen a lot of those become just useless dead space.
Honestly, our primary concern was getting some natural light into what is a very tight, efficient
Yeah.
box, which is what you like about it in many ways,
put picnic
but it's an
tables or
opportunity
puddles.
because of the structure
Yeah,
to get
Doesn't have to
daylight
be
in.
grass.
It doesn't have to be grass.
No, it doesn't be grass.
You could do
And
some
then at
grass
West
beds.
Street, there is a courtyard at West Street,
Yeah.
and everybody really
They love
loves it because it brings fresh air into the building and light, and people actually go out in the courtyard and have lunch.
That alone would be fine, it's just,
So that's a plus.
the access to it.
Courtyard reminiscent of West Street.
Can I ask about the natural light? So there's a lot of it in the current library as it stands, because there's the lights that come in.
Right.
And this library is kind of in the middle of a building. Would there be any way to have some natural light going into that?
Those are skylights.
There are
There were
skylights.
originally
absolutely.
skylights
Okay.
here.
Right.
This proposal proposes to resurrect the skylights that were originally there. The structure for them exists.
I guess one con would be, since we're comparing different options, East Meadow remains the way it is. It's the old building, old footprint. So it's a con.
Why is that a con? Is it a
Well, we're basically comparing different designs. I mean, you keep an old building instead of building a new one. In my mind, that's a con.
But it really wouldn't be.
You're updating everything.
We're going to put new windows in
Yeah.
it, you're going to put new doors in it.
We're not trying to, as far as I understand, we're not trying to endorse one or the other right now. I'm just saying that in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, if I have something new, instead of getting the old, I would prefer the new. So from that perspective, it's a con. It may not be a criterion for selection at the end.
I think your point, to sort of expand on what you're saying, is that if you remember, we went through the Frank Locker visioning information. And so when you see this kind of configuration in the new part of the building, which is 2 classrooms with a shared small group space, that's the kind of thing you can't do here. And I think that's part of what you're saying. So you have a little less flexibility to do those sorts of moves.
And the heating system for the new building?
Would be all new. I mean, we'd gut rehab this, so it would have a new heat.
So the same boiler room would heat the new building?
We don't know.
Too soon to say.
Yeah.
Too soon to say.
Probably not. That's pretty far to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to do state-of-the-art in both, but we can insulate this building a lot better than that one.
The cost per pupil served, I think that was one of the charts you had was significantly. I think that's sort of an implicit pro of this model.
Any other cons? Yeah.
It's going to cost between a 9.5% and 10.5% increase in property taxes.
Do you know how much square footage you took off of 5B as compared to 5A?
I was just thinking about that. It says 4,000 square feet. I'm surprised at that. I don't think
You would
It's
expect
heavy.
more or less?
less.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, let us check that. Don't.
Yeah.
It's significant, but we have to double check that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we add under con what was mentioned about the idea of the visioning and stuff, and the ideas that were brought forward as things that people wanted in a new building are not going to be reflected in the renovation part?
Not to the same extent, right?
Right. Like, I mean, you can see where you've tried to incorporate some of that, but not all of those are going to be able to be incorporated
That's right.
in the same way. So it's almost like you're
Well, we're
one
doing
thing
some of it.
Right, no, and that-
There is
yes.
some,
Yep.
group space there and smaller teaching areas intermixed with the regular classroom, but not as
But
much.
not as many.
Yep.
I know it's preliminary, but could you just go, start in the upper left of East Meadow where the green is, and just sort of just read what you have there, what those rooms are?
Sure.
Just go around the outside, just so,
Okay, we have 2 6th grade classrooms. We just arbitrarily said the 6th grade was going to be the smaller class grade because the way it is MSB. Remember when we did the space summary, we ended up with 2 more classrooms than MSBA was recommending because you have 51 to 55 kids per grade. But there's dipping in, there will be a grade in all of these grades that will fit in 2 classrooms. So one of them is going to be, we just called it 6th grade. And one of the classrooms is large because it's the old art room. Then a special ed classroom, a resource room, 3 5th grades of slightly under the recommended amount.
Right.
That's another thing to say.
Yep.
These are a little bit undersized, but when you get 3 for 51 kids, you have a nice small class per classroom. It's much smaller. 3 4th grades, 2 resource rooms of different sizes, a large special ed classroom, a smaller special ed area, and then 3 3rd grades, an art classroom, special ed classroom, and the music classroom we had near the stage. And it's a little undersized in this as well. Teacher planning and teacher dining here with the outside light, a tutorial room and a resource room, a media center, platform, cafeteria, kitchen, mechanical. So that's this part. Did I cover everything? Here, when you come in, it's administration and right to the left, a pre-K, 2 classrooms for pre-kindergarten with shared learning area, 3 kindergartens of larger classroom size, 1,000 square feet, and a shared learning area, 3 first grades, 3 second grades, OTP classroom, 2 resource rooms, another special ed classroom, and a small room, and a planning room for these faculty. And then the gym and toilets, and I think that's workroom.
No storage at all.
Well, no, when we actually go from conceptual design to schematic design, we start showing storage. There would be more storage.
No area for like instrumental music? Is that music room supposed to take care of both? Or, assuming we still have such a thing, I hope.
Yes.
Teaching the Catholic
Right.
back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Here's our chance to get
we
away
will
from
do
that.
better acoustics than you're used to in a gym and a cafeteria. It will be improved.
I guess a con, from my perspective, would be that the bathrooms are for the primary wing of the school, but also the gym is the public place, so I don't know how that
Oh, well,
works out, or...
these classrooms have their own
Okay.
internal toilets that you just can't see. Well, that's what these are. And then this is meant to be toilets for this age kids. So these are the public toilets. Yeah.
Margot, what's the difference between a special ed room and a resource room?
They're all part of special ed.
What do you say the computer rooms are? Or is there any such thing?
Part of
lost
the
that
media
too.
center.
It is?
Yeah.
Where would the exit be on the building that would lead out to the play area that's on the side?
Well, it might be here. Maybe. Definitely here would be an exit. Yeah, I guess that these kids could go out this way to the back, the older playground, and through there, I guess.
We'll have to balance the, code required versus convenience versus safety and security. So getting all those in line.
Right.
That enclosed space between the new building and the old building, is that another courtyard?
Yep. So it gives daylight and fresh air to these classrooms. Plus, you want the new construction far enough away from the existing that you can build a construction fence and phase it. So at one point, we had this building touching this, and we decided, in fact, for phasing, it would be better just to keep it separate. And there has to be a what do you call it, construction joint, expansion joint between the two. It's easier to just do it in a small area.
And the walls on those two sides, how high are they? Is there a normal building height?
Which sides?
That second large courtyard. You have walls on both sides, right? Or the passages, the hallways.
Mm-hmm.
That they would be building high, or
Yeah.
They, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there'd be windows, lots of windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Is that
the
an
gym
issue?
will be a taller space for sure.
Right.
And how much taller this building is than this, I mean, we'll have to keep that in mind because we don't want to block the light that we just permitted to come in with the courtyard.
And the reason why I'm asking
We
is,
don't know.
looks like it's a fairly large courtyard, and if
Mhm.
you know we get lucky and the weather is nice, there might be some outdoor activity, some concert or something like that.
Actually, on the left, not that I want to design for you, but where the cafeteria is, if that was sort of a concrete, you know, you could put additional tables
Yeah,
out there. in
on
good
the
weather.
nice weather,
Yeah.
2
That's
weeks a
cheap
year,
enough.
you could have
Yeah.
frescoes.
Right.
That'd be great.
The first branch of Cafe Ranch.
Yeah, that was another slight advantage of having admin here, or breaking up the gym and the cap was that this can be a one-story form against the two-story form, so you won't see the gym as this big hulking form.
Margot, if you were looking at that area where they were saying would make a nice cemented area, what about an overhang for being able to go out, even if the weather's not great, being able to go outside?
Oh. You could take a look at that.
Somewhere
We have
children
covered
first.
play over here,
Okay.
where the playgrounds are. But we wouldn't want to make it dark.
No,
Right, to balance that.
Yeah.
Maybe a second covered play
Yeah.
area on the other
Yeah.
side for the younger kids.
Over here.
Yeah.
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 Mark them off.
Or even, you know, like a what do you call it? Some sort of shaded, but not. Yeah, pergola. Right.
Oh, I just think you're going to start making it dark if you start putting structures in.
Other pros and cons? We can always come back.
Yeah, we could.
This was
Right.
good,
Very helpful.
helpful, yes.
Okay, next scheme is six, correct? All right. 6 is the new pre-kindergarten. Excuse me, pre-K through 3, and an unimproved 4 through 6. So, again, we did this thing, well, this has the site plan we showed the last time, buses at the front and cars over here, so kids would have to come around. We could probably improve the site plan if this is the scheme, to make one centralized door. But so, there's not much else to say about it. Do you want me to go through the building itself?
Sure. Nice.
Okay. Main entry with the admin again to the left. It's kind of a long corridor. But down here you have the gym with a kitchen and a cafeteria, so we could open those two with the stage. So this can be, you know, a pro would be that you could make it work as an expanded stage area. Custodian to the west, music classroom, art classroom, and media center. So all the community facilities are here. And this is sized to serve a larger capacity. I mean, well, all elementary schools now have 6,000 square foot gyms. So when you build the pre-K through 3, you get a big adult-sized gym. Then the kindergarten suite, pre-kindergarten, as you come in also, resource, special ed, first grade, second grade, third grade. And in this case, there's 2 third grades because of the way the space summary works out. And special ed, 2 large special ed classrooms and lots of small resource rooms. And then this, we just at the last, when this is all done, you make a corridor and connect to the upper school, but we would not touch it for the amount of money that we had in the matrix.
One of our previous conversations regarding to the existing building, we indicated that there's a 99% chance that the fire chief would make us put sprinklers in there. And we also said that we needed to have a handicap entrance to get into the existing building to meet the current code. So do you think there's anything beyond that has to take place in that building? Those items, I'm 99% sure are going to happen.
Well, do you mean an accessible entrance or make the building accessible?
No, just an accessible entrance and maybe even an accessible men's or women's room or a unisex inside that building to meet the current codes? Something has to
Well, I'm
happen
just
in
worried the
that
minute
building.
anything is
Building.
triggered,
Right.
there's a lot more access
Right.
issues in that building.
I think once we connect it, there's a lot of them that are on the back page.
And put that as a con of
But yeah, put
code
that as a
issues.
con.
As code issues.
Could trigger more extensive code.
I think it will. It doesn't mean this.
But connecting, just to be clear, I don't disagree with part of that, but connecting the building isn't going to be the thing that triggers what you're saying. I mean, you're saying that they may come in regardless of
Well,
whether.
there's various tiers that you make. Once you make a connection, there's a tier 1. And
Yeah.
one of that tiers is making sure that the handicapped people
Oh.
can get into the building.
Okay.
And the second one is that there has to be a unisex lavatory for them to use. Then the tier beyond that is, can they get to all of the classrooms? So I don't know which tier that they would make a stop at. But beyond that, I really feel that the fire chief, and I wouldn't put this fire chief, but fire chiefs in many other communities have all said, once you go into the building and start that they want it sprinkled. And I think that would come about. I haven't asked that question. I'm just,
And we haven't asked it.
yeah, haven't asked it, but history says that happens.
Okay.
I can tell you
So-
from having carried around hoses in my day.
It will happen.
Now, just to be clear, and I'm not like comparing to, but is that the same for the other, for 5B? Is that-
You get them automatically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing
Yes.
a gut rehab in
Yep.
that. So,
Cleaning
yeah.
system.
Yeah.
I asked this before, with the connection of that hallway, and maybe this is a question for you, Judy, but is that considered one, would that still be considered one building? Again, with an ability to leverage admin and clinics and
Sure,
things like that?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be an internal access. The con for me would be the fact that you don't have the same kind of traffic flow as you do in 5B. It is a single corridor,
Yep.
both in and out. So it makes it a little more difficult, particularly with little people that tend to not have good command of their personal space. A good way to say that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I even wonder if we should have the entrance in the middle when you go to one school or the other, but that would be dark and,
Need to be by admin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
well, but this admin isn't sized to be for both.
For both, right. The concept here is that they are 2 separate buildings from a fire code standpoint and from hopefully an accessibility standpoint, such that this might not even be conditioned space. I mean, there are two, I think we have to think about them as 2 very close together but separate buildings in order to not trigger every code violation and situation in the existing.
Yeah, right. Maybe the project doesn't even support
Which-
that that's a covered walkway.
I don't remember, was this plan significantly less money?
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
how significant?
A pro of the plan is
12
that
million
Okay, so I guess that would be a pro.
the play area,
That would be pro.
the play area for the younger children is a little bit closer to them and a little bit more separated from the older kids' play area. So that would be potentially a pro of the design. But on the same flip side, it looks like that primary play area is kind of small. So it could be on at the same time.
Broken windows. We don't want that. But it could spill out in here, for sure.
The cost of this is going to be between 6.5% and 7.5% of your tax increase. It's both a pro and a con. It's a pro in that it's doable, most likely, that you could talk to the citizens of building that. But it's a con in that it's not going to happen by just having to show up and vote. It's going to take, I think, individually speaking, many people. Not going to work for people that talk people that raise their taxes by over 7%. It doesn't happen in Massachusetts.
You don't think it's going to be a trend center?
Well, based upon past history, no. And I would say this. What happened last time when we tried to build a school was that people lost sight of the fact that we were risking $13 million. But that risk disappeared. We didn't get it because they said, well, design that was much, much too big. This design will bring in about $13 million from the state for their portion of it. And what's at risk is losing that money. If we look for trying to get 10% taxes out of people, what we're risking is losing this money. And based on our experience with dealing with the MSBA, if we lose it, that is probably it. That's probably the death of the Granby schools.
Well, you go to the back of the line, and the line's pretty long, and their confidence would be shaken.
All right. Yep. I don't think we'd see any. I don't think we, in our lifetimes, I don't think we'd see the MSBA offering to help out the schools.
But on the other hand, we have different ways to configure how we're going to be financing this, which we're not getting into right now because we don't know which one option we're going to go with. And number two, there might be some opportunity based on what you were saying to see whether or not the previous option and this option may get closer to each other in cost. Still, there will be a pretty substantial gap, and it needs to be considered, and we need to discuss that. But we have to do our final analysis based on what those numbers are, the size advantages and cost advantages.
Well, I think for determining whether or not you're going to choose one or the other, $1 million isn't the issue. The issue is how are you going to sell this to the people? How are you going to convince people to raise their taxes by 7 or 8% or 10 or 11%? And I don't think there's any hope of getting them to raise it by 10 or 11%. And I think if you want to try to raise by taxes by 7 or 8%, it's going to take a yeoman effort, which was much, much different from the effort that was expended in the last school building committee. It is not going to be easy. It may not be possible, and it's not going to be easy. I can guarantee that.
Based on the current mood of parents who have kids at West Street School, it may be a little bit easier than you think.
Yeah, I mean, people, there's a mass exodus being talked about now in Granby. I don't think you're being fair to the people, and you just think that history is going to repeat itself. And I want to say that's not true, that we're more educated now, and we're in more dire straits than ever. It's gotten worse, not better. So I think it will be a hard job to convince them of the higher taxes, but I'm not kidding you when, have you heard about the school committee meeting and all the parents that are going to do school choice this year? They're trying to get it because they're so ticked off about what's going on and how Granby doesn't take care of. It's public schools. I mean, the property values are going to go down. It's not, it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense, but I just don't think that it's impossible, like you think it's impossible. And I'm saying it's not impossible. Nothing is impossible.
I don't think John thinks it's impossible. I think he's saying it's going to be very difficult.
I'm saying it's not going to work if you try, if the same way of going after the votes is done this time as it was done last time. I mean, how many kids are in the school? 215? So how many voters is that? How many voters is that? You know, how many voters are in the town? About 2,400. Right there? The 2,400 come out.
This scheme has 215.
2,400 come out.
We're lucky if we get that much.
Well,
This scheme has 215 voters.
Don't worry about that later.
The addition renovation, the other one has 430. So there are more stakeholders in the addition renovation. And the other thing we forgot to say is operating costs are going to be greatly reduced.
Remember,
That was going to be
remember,
one con,
remember last
yeah.
time, the unemployment rate in Granby was over 10%. Now, it's certainly fallen from that high, and I don't know exactly what it is now.
I believe it's
But,
63.
you know, this is not our kids deserve this kind of argument. That's not going to work. No, we're talking economics now.
I think we're getting a little lost here. I think we want to just stick to the pros and cons. I don't think this discussion is coming, but I think we want to stick to the pros and cons for now.
So my comment for this one was that there is no decrease in operating costs.
Well, there's half a decrease in operating costs, because you're not doing West Street anymore. So
okay.
half your elementary school operating costs would be reduced.
But there's a potential for the other building to need renovation in the near future.
Yes,
You're not capitalizing on what your reduced maintenance costs, or operational costs.
Right. Operational. Right, and you're deferring
So it's cheaper in the beginning,
improvements.
but in the future,
Yeah.
Right, we could buy a new heating system, we could buy new windows, we could buy all that at 100% instead of 50%. And that is coming. We've already replaced one heating unit, and the other one is probably thinking about going south as well. The windows leak. We don't want the windows to turn to the same windows that they are in the high school, leaking and everything. We have this opportunity to get 50 cents on the dollar to get this building done, so we don't have to come back to the town meeting and say, I need you to vote tonight on a $10 million heating system, which they're not, which we're going to pay 100% of it. I think we need to try to explain that to the voters to see if this is the direction we want to go in. It may not be, but I think we need to explore that fully before we do anything else.
From an educational standpoint, looking at going from, the pre-K through 3, and then you're going into a really old building with outdated technology, technology that wouldn't exist in the newer building. So it's almost like the newer building is going to have all of the things that they need for 21st century learning, and then they're going backwards when they go into that newer building, and it's going to be a struggle, I will say, like for the students, for the teachers, and for the families who become accustomed to one way, and then all of a sudden it seems like they're going backwards.
They're the ugly stepchild going in the ugly building.
We call that the them and us.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we
true.
don't-
It is. Some of that, yeah.
On the pro side, looks like the new building, if we only go with that single structure, is going to be larger than the previous option, because we're going to have to put the gym, media center, and everything else. So each building will have its own gym, media center. It seems to make the new structure a little larger than well, actually, much larger than
Quite
the
a bit
previous one.
larger.
Yeah.
Oh, we have 2 gyms instead of 1 gym?
Yeah.
I
Right.
see that as a pro.
But also going back to what Jim has been saying, looking at what is happening currently and what triggered this particular project, that we are seeing a lot of structural deficiencies and structural issues in the current West Street School. Inevitably, just 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to encounter similar problems. So do we really want to look at today and make that decision, or just look at the future? And I'm not sure that economics actually looks at today. Economics is more visionary than reactionary. Probably accounting is more so looking at today. So we're going to have to, when we get to that conversation, as Mark said, we're going to have to look at pros and cons. I see pros and cons in both ways, and we can, easily document this. But we have to have that long conversation to see which one helps this community more than the other.
Another con that you can look at is if you don't do this together, construction prices just keep going up. They never come down. So if you do that in 10 years, the price of that is going to be significantly more than it's going to be if you do it this year.
Another pro might be, you had brought up the idea of when you come in, all of those kind of public type of things are kind of stationary in that one area together.
Yeah,
That might be a pro.
that is a pro.
Yes.
There's no problem MSBA would want to give this kind of money for 200 and few pupils. Isn't that a con? Isn't that a real taking the chance?
I think when we go to the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee, which is the committee that reports to the full board, they would say, why are you just taking care of your lower elementary school kids?
No, maybe so, for those reasons.
But they would look down, they allowed us in the PDP to keep exploring it, so it's not off the
You mean this
table.
option, they would, but doesn't it make sense that we're replacing a school that is actually serving the same population and we're
Yes, I mean,
basically relocating it?
Right.
So,
right, and gaining some efficiencies and economies by having it next to the upper.
which, whether or not, they're connected, still, the new gym could benefit the other building. The new media center could benefit the. So there are some economies of scale that is not really apparent in the drawing because there's one old structure and there's a new structure. But there are some things that can be used across the two buildings, I'm assuming.
But you'd have to, like the two libraries, you'd have to have two. Would you have two librarians? And whereas the other scheme is more efficient staff-wise.
Long-term costs of staffing and things like, and operational costs.
I think we really have to think hard about that. Because there are, if you really begin to sort of factor in the duplication, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but there are some real benefits that you can capture on every single vintage year, and they're real numbers. So we really have to think about that.
We could.
It's not just,
I mean, we should
saving money
quantify
on
the
heat.
energy savings with some numbers, and I don't know, Judy, if you'd.
Yeah, I could project out some staffing costs.
Would there be any reason why you couldn't use one library and, like, say, use a space in East Meadow for, I don't know, whatever?
Something else.
Yeah, you could, right. I mean, they could go
And that
for it,
gym
but
in the newer building is bigger.
Yeah.
And our gym is needing repair, so I would think that gym would probably be the place to go.
But then are you making it one building and not two separate buildings?
Well,
You're just making the students go out of one building and into
Right,
another building
right.
to use the
And-
library.
And there are places, districts that have two buildings kind of next to each other, and it's, and like I know of in East Hampton, it's two buildings. It's one one principal that runs both, and she leaves the building, goes to the next building. And, and the kids go from, they have specials in certain buildings, and they go from one to the other. I mean, it's not the ideal setup.
Right.
I have to ask this question because each time I think I understood it, I realize that there are some nuances. So let's say we let all students in those two buildings use that single new gym. If we repurpose, not adjust the code or anything, repurpose the old gym space, that still triggers the issues that Jim has been talking about. Is that correct?
Depends on your definition of repurpose. If it's just putting different function in there, a different classroom or different furniture, you probably wouldn't. But once you start to make a structural change to it, it does have an impact.
And the reason why I'm asking that, if we decide to go with this one, do we still have some opportunities to make use of that old space? Understandably, it is old. It's going to be a huge discrepancy in terms of technology, centuries, and all that stuff. That's understood. But will there be an opportunity to get some larger space for some of the activities in the current East Meadow building? Because if we don't want to have two librarians, for instance, and we decide to use one in the new structure, well, maybe that old library may become something else. I don't know what, but
A spa.
yeah.
It's likely that that would evolve over time. You know, you'd start to find things that would fit, and then you do, again, have to be careful about triggering. As soon as you start wanting to change things in existing East Meadow, you do have to watch that cap in terms of triggering code.
It goes quick.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's hard to
you'll have
just do a little
replace
bit.
Toilets and heating.
And one thing you have to understand with the various code, it's cumulative. How much money you spend in 3 years goes towards the value of the building. So once you reach a certain percentage of the total cost of the building, then you start building up. So it's cumulative. So if you spend $50,000 in the first year, you spend $50,000, you now are accredited towards $100,000 on the trigger of it. So at $100,000, it says you now have to build a men's room or a women's room. That doesn't mean it's cumulative. You just can't do it once. It's cumulative. It's very important to understand that. So to say we could come back and do something in that building this year, this year, this year, you can't because it's cumulative. And you'll
Outside of 3 years, I'll get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want it.
But the way that you're talking about this, I think one of the pros of the addition renovation is that you're taking advantage of this school and using the space wisely so that you don't have to build there won't be 2 cafeterias, 2 libraries, 2 kitchens. There'll just be one. And so that's why this is much smaller.
So maybe I was just not paying attention, but why do we need 2 cafeterias if they're connected like this?
Because we're not touching
Not touching
this.
that one.
We're going by pre-K through 3.
So they can't walk over to the other building and eat? Okay.
Well, it would be a whole different ballgame. I don't even think we could go there.
That's just that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fine as far as I'm concerned with the answer.
I know MSBA wouldn't let you build a pre-K through 3 new facility
Without it.
Right.
Could we feed the other kids over here? So like send
these kids
send the 4
here?
through 6.
I think operationally you can do what you want.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that would be.
Would just be
actually-
6 lunch periods.
So I want to add to the pro over here. I don't know. Did
You
we
know, that's
cover
going to be in the
that?
paper tomorrow.
Efficient.
Mark Bale wants kids to walk building to building to earn their lunch.
In the snow.
It's part of the new health group.
It's part of the wellness program,
yeah. It's good for the digestion, too.
So the total gross square footage of the combined ad reno is 67,000, and this is 52,000. So for an extra 15,000 square feet, you get the full pre-K through 6. And you get a higher reimbursement.
Yeah. And the original, the 5A was 76,000 square
Yeah.
feet.
See, I think we hadn't taken the courtyard out.
Yeah.
In that first calculation.
In the first calculation.
So it's probably going to go down a little in price.
Which is all good.
Yeah. So should we look at new pre-K through 6?
Finish the exercise.
Yeah.
I have a tough time with that one.
Do it anyway.
It's your cons. All smart gambler.
And dream. Dream about it.
Okay. So the new pre-K through 6 is a 2-story building that's placed pretty close, much closer to the street. You get an enclosed play area. You get a sort of unified parking lot in the middle. And then an empty school building to do with what you wish. I don't know what the ideas are.
So based on your drawing alone, the fact that a new septic is likely to be required, sewer treatment plant will be required. We have an old building that we don't know what to do with, which will be cost, whether we demolish it or keep it and do something with it, because you have to maintain it. I think those are the cons.
Two old buildings.
Pardon me?
Two old buildings.
Yes, 2 old buildings.
Well, a two-story building too, I'm not convinced that's what we want for this age group.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is it typical?
Why?
I mean, do you?
Oh, lots of two-stories.
Yeah, we have it now.
We're working on a 3-story school. Actually, we have a 4-story.
Yeah.
So it depends on the
Is it
site.
because of space limitations mostly? Yeah.
But you lose efficiency when you go up. Now you have stairwells, you have elevators, you have things that you wouldn't need on a one-story building, so you lose the efficiency.
Well, you do, but you gain
On the
thermal.
envelope. On the envelope.
Yeah. And usually you have the, as in this case, you have the younger kids on the first floor and the older kids on the second. And so they form communities based on the floor. I think there's pros to actually a 2-story building. But,
In terms of spaces like the gym, cafeteria, it doesn't look like they are much larger than what we would have in the renovated option.
The gym is always the same.
right, the gym's the
MSBA
same.
standards, the 6,000 square feet.
You're right, the calf is not that much bigger than
Right.
here. And if we expand into the platform and put the stage here, we'll be the same.
At one point, these two options, in terms of their costs, they were close to each other.
Right.
How are they right now?
Well, this total is 76,600,
Right.
and this is 6700. So, but it's the reimbursement rate, and
Right, the addition remodel was approximately $750,000 more than a brand new. More. So addition remodel 5B was $750,000 more than.
pre-K through 3.
No.
New pre-K through 6.
A new pre-K through 6.
So all brand new is cheaper than renovated and
All brand new is about
But Alan, would that number be based on the fact that you're talking about moving walls within
Do we have a new one?
the current building? And if you're not going to do that,
I'm looking at old numbers.
Yeah, those are old numbers.
Old numbers.
37.6 versus...
Actually, the other way around, flip that. Yeah. Sorry.
At the March 5th, is that the March 5th chart?
yeah.
March 5th chart.
Yeah. But this number doesn't have the sewer treatment.
That will even be more savings.
Yes. And the reimbursement.
But the cost there doesn't take into account
I wouldn't say that.
anything that we might end up doing with the 2 old buildings.
No.
If we decide, hey, there's no way for us to do anything with these 2 buildings, they have to be demolished, that's extra cost.
Right, and the
To maintain,
MSBA
that's extra
doesn't
cost.
participate.
Demolition, they won't benefit from.
Yeah, so those figures may be a little misleading because they don't really take into account some of the possible scenarios that may come with that option.
Yep.
I don't need any more myself. Okay. That's it. Does everybody have the chart for March 5th, the cost on it?
But March
But on the pro side, I would say new buildings.
New
They're
building.
brand new, both of them are brand new.
You have a March 26th chart?
Yeah.
I don't have much.
You get copies of
Serve it all.
we got March 26th.
Oh,
we will truly have one elementary school that is in one single structure.
Born in the 21st century.
On the con side, it's the costliest option.
A split between Granby's cost and
So the 26th one, we, looks like Granby shares about 50% of that.
the 26th one doesn't seem to have a split between Granby's cost and MSBA's cost?
Right, but we said last meeting that it takes about 50% of that, of the total cost, which would be Granby's cost.
As a rule of thumb right now, that, with the exclusions that you're not going to get, and the ineligible items that you can figure on, you're going to get about 50% reimbursement.
The March 5th one has about the same construction cost. It has an MSB share and a Granby share on it. That seems to vary by the option.
Right. Well, the Granby share would be less with the renovation reimbursement.
And on this one, the build and renovate, option 5, has our cost at 17.1, and the build all new has our cost at 18.4. That's Granby's cost.
That's not.
No, that's.
That's even before. Okay.
Yeah, there is one there.
Should have brought these ones, sorry.
But this one doesn't have a split.
That one doesn't have a split on it.
Right.
This one has got the splits on it. And I think the construction costs are about the same, $39,230 for the option 7, and the $26,980 for option 6, and $37,950 for option 5.
Yeah, this would probably be a little bit more.
Well, but the thing is, it's the same figure, I think, on this and the other sheet, but this doesn't have Granby's cost on it.
It has the Granby
Yeah.
share, doesn't have the MSBA. Total town cost.
No, that's total costs. The approximate town costs are for the extra add-ons. I think the one from March 5th is going to be more useful to us for getting an idea what Granby's cost is. The one from March 26th does not have Granby's cost on it. And it's perhaps approximately 50%, but based on the one from the 5th, it's not 50%. It's less.
I have to.
26th one.
I do, but I don't have the other.
Well, how good do we know that spreadsheet is on the 5th? Do we know that's,
It's the same construction costs.
okay.
I think what we did was on the 5th, we started saying this is going to get confusing if we start trying to split hairs at this point in time, because you get more reimbursement on addition remodel than you do on a brand new. So we said let's, at this point in time, and we're still in feasibility and schematic design, figure you're going to get 50% reimbursement on a total construction value of what we gave out on 26.
You're saying that assumption regardless of which option we select, but when you actually get into it, I think, Margot, you're saying if it's an ad reno, the reimbursement might be a little less or a little bit more versus an all new, right?
Reimbursement would be more.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That you're going to get more money back on an ad reno from the state.
right. So half the cost would be more
Well,
reimbursement.
if your previous estimates were not correct, that's one thing, but if they're all close to correct, in some of these options, it makes $1 million difference. And that is a lot. $1 million is what full 1% of our taxes, right? Our total taxes are only $10 million, so we have to raise $1 million extra.
That's 10%.
We can get to those, but I mean, the big one that we didn't want to confuse you with is with the septic system that's 100% of Granby's cost. So, I mean, we're trying to isolate some of these numbers and not isolate other numbers, so we're all of a sudden we had apples and oranges, and we're trying not to be confusing at this point in time. It's too early to we'll get you confused later on.
Yeah, on number 7, there's $1 million of cost just for Granby,
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And we think that's still the case.
which is a sewer treatment plant.
Right.
So that's figured in
made
here.
it here.
But still with that, there's $1 million less to our total costs than if it were just a 50-50 split.
Can I ask a question? For the ad reno, the reason for MSBA giving back more reimbursement, is that because of the potential for you to run into more increased costs with the location?
I'm not sure if it's that. I think it's more that there's an
keep the
incentive
building
there
and not
to
get
try and keep what you have already and reuse it.
So, I'm sorry, say that again? The ad reno, you actually get a more favorable reimbursement than you have to build all new?
Yes, you will get
You're right.
a percentage of what you add reno on the overall cost. They will give you, and they will add that to your reimbursement rate.
Plus, you don't have to worry about getting rid of the old building or
Right.
everything like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there any fear of running into like problems as you start to renovate and
Oh,
like?
yeah.
Heck yeah.
How does that run in, how does that get tied into the cost? Because, I mean, do you allow a cushion there? Like, how does that?
Yes. You have a contingency and you definitely put a bigger contingency.
Once we start really designing this, we send it out to the estimators,
Oh, that's why
and
it's
they
so
will
high.
be pricing up the ad reno differently than they price up the brand new portion, and take into account all the things that have to come out.
But you'll also be doing some destructive investigation,
Yes.
where now you haven't done that, so you
No.
will identify some of the hidden issues through that process.
Right.
That's true, but we can never find them all, and that's just being
But
completely
you'll find a
honest.
majority of them.
Yes, that
Well,
is
and
the
it's a
goal.
simple building.
Yes.
It's really
Yeah.
It is.
straightforward. It's
Yeah.
not like a historic preservation job that is more complex.
You look at it, you're basically keeping the structure, and the structure
Yeah.
alone. You're not going to keep anything else.
Doors.
Exterior, most of the exterior wall will be replaced. All the windows will be all brand new, everything will, the roof will be all brand new. Everything, the only thing you're going to have is a structural steel frame.
So we got sidetracked. Are we?
Yeah.
Is there anything else here on this?
Mr.
version?
Chair,
Sorry.
can we, if we can maybe finish this. So the intent of tonight was to kind of zero in on the plans per Judy's suggestion and see if we could come a little closer to what that preferred scheme was, right? So maybe if we finish this.
A pro of the total new build would potentially be to be able to relocate the district central office and the town offices into East Meadow and have some shared space, since we are talking about increased collaboration between town and schools. That would be a pro of it. And Chris and I could have lunch together every day.
I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah, but I get to see him eat.
I would bring you coffee every morning, Chris.
Is that a plus, having everybody come onto the site where there's students every day to a building which is located?
It's a plus
50
as
feet away
one-stop
from-
shopping. It's a plus for one-stop shopping. All
Not a
departments are.
problem having all these people around with students?
I
and
think
stuff?
that the town offices and the superintendent should go to West Street School. And live there for a while. Live there with the furnace
They got
blowing
one
his
big
feet.
fan there already.
Yeah, I know.
I had to give it back.
Oh.
That's where you should go instead.
I'm going with a
Just
sledgehammer.
Just kidding.
I think that the con side of that is a very real factor. You're now bringing in traffic for all kinds of reasons, all sorts of things. If that is that.
Yep.
Everybody who's coming in to get their dog license or pay their taxes, or, the 100 different reasons people come to town hall.
And Granby doesn't need another empty building.
We'll have it empty buildings.
The other, and I mean, I guess that's assuming that the current East Meadow could be absorbed with the DEP questions that are out there. And that's another, isn't that another number of bodies to factor into the formula?
Well, that's why we're saying it triggers the sewer treatment.
Okay, okay.
We don't know that for a fact, but
We would-
We're pretty sure.
We would likely assume that,
Yes.
which
I mean, I don't
costs
think,
it out of the world.
It wasn't sized to have 3 buildings here.
Yeah.
It was sized to have 2 buildings and a little on top of that.
So
Because
Chris,
you
I
could-
guess you're off the hook.
So
You
that,
can put outhouses in for East.
that option never had been permitted from the previous discussion.
So are we done with that one?
Yep. Let's follow on last.
I have a quick question on that one.
Yep.
Is there a delineation between certain grades? So the second floor will be primarily for fifth and
Third through sixth. Because pre-K and K take more space. So this was third through sixth.
But you could repurpose some of those classrooms if necessary, correct? If you had to move them down or...
Yeah, I mean, if you choose this, then we keep designing it. And if you want a third grade down, not up, there are pedagogical reasons for both of those grade configurations. But this is really just how much stuff you build, not necessarily the design.
I guess on the pro side for this one, we can say that the maintenance cost will be a little lower.
Operating, maintenance,
Yeah.
yep.
Right.
Because it'll be one thermal envelope.
The other thing is you are going to have an elevator. That's an
Right.
maintenance cost, inspection,
Yeah.
upkeep.
Yeah.
So that would be another con for me.
And different operating costs.
Yeah, no chair lifts.
Okay, well, should we put the three on
Elevator.
an elevator or just leave them up there? Can everybody
Can't
see
read 'em?
this?
Yeah. Probably not. Yeah, they'll just sort of crumble to the ground, these horrible pieces.
Oh. Put it on.
Put them on the, too late.
All right, so I'll just put it to the middle.
Vanna White?
I'm going to do it in order.
As Vanna White, I'll come over here. My ball gown is in the cleaners.
Can I ask something about the lower operating costs on the pros of number 7? If that had a sewer treatment facility, wouldn't that incur a higher cost yearly anyway?
Yes.
So I don't know if that would offset that lower operating cost, but you're gonna start to incur long-term cost yearly with some of that, so I don't know how it might offset or even eliminate that, I don't know how offsetting that would be, but that would be a cost.
Well, it's also hiring a principal who is skilled with water treatment.
She knows enough about that.
That'd be great advertising.
Looks good on your resume.
Familiar with stormwater 2 regulations and classroom discipline.
I worked in Flushing regularly.
We're getting punchy.
So, what do we need tonight? We need a kind of preference, if there is one, but it all needs to be subject to the final DEP decision.
Using eyeball statistics, it's a valid method. Certainly 5B has the most pros and the least cons.
Well, we could also do a show of hands. Who likes 5B? Who likes 6?
I don't know, which one do I like?
And who likes 7?
I like 6.
6,
Which one would we get rid of?
7.
7, right?
7 I couldn't even.
Okay.
Nobody wants 7.
Nobody wants 7,
Okay.
okay, so we
Down to 2?
Well, we want it.
Well, we want it, but
Got it.
Chris doesn't.
Who's winning the lottery?
No, we eliminate it quickly, but is that true? I don't know. I mean, do we all feel that way?
Anybody think that the townspeople would vote for 7?
No.
No.
I think it would be hard to sell number 6.
Oh, I think the opposite. I think it's going to be harder to sell under 5B.
No, I think it's harder to sell number 6 because you're not dealing with East Meadow at all.
Yeah, see,
Mark, why do you think 5B would be tougher to sell?
because right now it's more millennium. And I I look at it similar to John. I mean, if this were my house, you know, I'd probably try to scrimp and I would have to save and do the thing that was more efficient. When it comes to me trying to tell people what to do with their taxes, and remember, it's not up to me, and it's not, well, I think this is the best choice because it's the most, we're talking really about efficiency. I have to tell people why it's basically going to increase their taxes by $300 to $400 a year over the other option.
But they can see beyond that to the fact they're just kicking the can down the road on the existing school.
We're definitely kicking the can. The other thing is, if that were the only tax increase we're looking at, and I'm not even talking about the sewer thing, but right now, we're having a problem funding our schools. And it'd be great to have 2 new buildings, but then not have enough money to run them. So when it comes to increasing taxes, I don't look at it in terms, it's not even so much a matter of, well, this is going to be really hard for me to try and tell people this is what we need to do. It's a matter of, down the road, if I have to spend more money and use another tax increase, that well is going to run dry at some point. It's not a bottomless pit. So that's my thinking.
You asked the question, which one do we like? Why don't you ask the question, which one do you think we should build? I know you're going to get one change vote at least, that's mine. Because I'd like 5B, but I would never recommend that to anybody. It's going to be impossible to get that funded.
John, when you did your estimate, did you assume a 20-year bond, a 30-year bond, 40-year bond?
30 years.
30?
Unless we're making a decision tonight, I don't think we need to go on with that.
Well, how do we, let me ask this. If we were to do some financial analysis on what we think the cost of the building would, I wrote down a few things that could factor into it. First of all, we know 5B has less square footage than the original version. So we know the cost is going to come down. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, we have some real potential cost savings in terms of duplication of staffs. It's not sort of the fictitious, well, your energy costs are going to be lower. It's always tough to really, but we're really talking about perhaps some real numbers. We have an opportunity to perhaps capture school choice at a larger rate under 5B than 6. We have an opportunity to bond for 40 years. Now, I'm not saying it would be an easy thing. I'm saying it's an opportunity and it could happen. We have stabilization dollars that we would have to talk to the town about. We have an opportunity to sell West Street School instead of turning that into administrative buildings. But it is an opportunity that you could sell that to a developer and turn that into taxable real estate. And there is this $305,000 tax override that gets earmarked towards the schools that maybe, if we're getting more school choice money. So I'm just throwing out some ideas that should be factored into the final cost for a tax increase.
But one con against one of your numbers is, are you building a school to bring in more school choice students or to educate your own children?
Well,
Are you looking at it at building a building so you can generate revenue off of it, or to meet the educational needs of Granby residents?
Well, let's just turn.
I think
that's a good question, but let's just turn it around this way. This actually could allow us not to lose the students that we are losing to other districts because we don't have.
I don't have a problem with that, but when he's saying you're building it so you can attract more school choice, that becomes a problem, because now you're building a building to bring more kids from the outside in than dealing with the educational needs of your own.
No, what I said is
that's
you
all I'm
need
saying.
It's potential.
They're going to need more students because the Granby students' population is going down and down. Nobody, I mean, I'm in real estate. Who's going to want to live here?
Build a building so that we can bring in more school choice students.
But I think
No, I didn't, Chris, I didn't say that.
I think
It's
stop
just
the
bleeding.
bleeding.
It's
And
a
I
flow.
think the disadvantage of this design is you'll have bleeding when they go from here to here.
I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is, when you're out there trying to sell 5B, you can't sit there and say, we're building it so we can attract more school choice kids.
Absolutely
You can't
right.
put that out there because people are going
But
to
you want to
vote
bring
against it.
people home.
wait,
That's what
wait.
you want to do.
To be
No,
clear,
I disagree with you, Joe, and you're not going to change my mind on that.
No, what I said was,
But you
these
can
are
change the wording.
these are the things that need to be factored into the, I didn't say we're building it for school choice.
Right,
I
you
said,
didn't say that.
when you're running your numbers, these are the things that we should consider. And the reality is, Chris, if you don't get the school choice kids, you put a bigger tax burden on the people who remain, which is the situation we're in today. So just, that needs to be
Yeah, but on
factored
the
in.
flip side though, Joe, we lose revenue when we send kids out. So if we can get Granby kids to come home, we stop the bleeding. We don't lose revenue.
Right.
So I think, rather than think about generating more revenue, it's if our tax dollars are going to Belchertown, Amherst, South Hadley, our tax dollars should stay right here in this town. That 5B would do that. 6 would cause an exodus between 3rd and 4th grade.
Chris, the way I look at it, and I hear you, and I don't think we should build a school just to attract school choice students. That's I think we agree on that one. I guess the way things are happening right now, the student population that is coming from within Granby is declining. So we're making up the difference with some school choice students. If things change in the future, with people coming in, and we have Granby students, kids from Granby, who make up the numbers, that will be great. But if that doesn't happen, the new buildings give us at least the option of becoming an attractive place for the students from outside to come here. If we don't have newer buildings, chances are, as our population declines and our enrollment declines, we may not be able to attract any students through school choice from outside. I think that's...
But also, Emery, I don't want to fall into the same trap we did with the last school building project that everybody said it was oversized for our need, too.
Yeah, we should not overbuild. I agree on that one.
I don't want to fall into that trap, so I don't want to have it out there that we're building to attract outside kids. I'm looking at, we're building it for our needs right now. Yeah, okay, if the population goes down, then yeah, you have extra seats that you can farm out.
An
for lack of a
attractive
better
school
word.
that would be...
But all I'm saying is I don't want it out there
Yeah,
that we're
that's not how
building
you're gonna
something.
sell it, right,
Yeah.
that's not how you're gonna sell it, of course.
Right. What you're going to say to Granby residents is, stay for this. That's what you're going to say.
Right.
I gotta say, East Long Meadow, I teach at the high school, which is opened in 1960, and it's in better shape than this because they actually did some things, I don't know, prior to my arrival, like in the 70s or the 80s, where they got rid of half of the curtain walls, put, in real walls and stuff like that. And they want to put in a request, SOI, that we call it. But they're coming from a brand new school, and the kids still go to school there. And I don't hear them complaining much about the building, although they're very embarrassed when they, on my debate team, when we go to
Long Meadow.
Chickabee High or Long Meadow, and then
Well, we're not even trying to keep up with the Joneses and Granby, we're just trying to survive.
But I don't, yeah. So, the other thing, and this is another thing that makes me conservative about tax increases, is one good thing is if we do the rental, we've taken care of 2/3 of our schools.
Yeah.
One bad thing is we've increased our taxes by 10%, and we've done absolutely nothing with the biggest school in the district.
That was one of the problems with the last building project, was that it was focused on the high school when you had this.
Well,
I'm just saying that one of the reasons why it failed was because it didn't address something so obvious, which was West Street School. It's been falling down for a long time.
I know, I'm not talking about that.
Okay, so I just need to bring that up because the old building project keeps getting brought up. So
Yeah.
I needed to say that.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But at some point, we're going to have to do something with this building. And that is going to kick in architectural codes, we know that. It's not even imaginable that it won't.
We probably, on Joe's list, we probably could go back to the assessment that they did, and they're going to tell us that the heating system is about to fail or something else about to fail, and they could be more line items to put on the reason why we want to spend the money now at 50 cents on the dollar instead of 100.
Yeah, see, that's an efficiency argument. I
And that
understand
could go on
that.
this list of why we should be going forward with this project now.
But-
It's a good reason to do this.
What I'm trying to say is one of the reasons I'm cautious about this is because we got this right here. And, you know, people might say, oh, this is great, we'll do all this, we'll take care of this. And then they say, we gotta go to the high school. And where's that money gonna come from? Saving 50 cents on a dollar is great, but if we don't have, if we're looking at another, well, for here, what, 15%, 20% tax increase to do this building at this point?
When we say here, we're talking about the high school building?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we just go back to this one and go to Joe's list, one more thing that we've heard tonight was that the reimbursement rate would be higher for option 5B compared to the other options.
That's right, yeah.
Another selling point.
Well, I think it is a selling point simply for the fact of the matter that East Meadow will need renovations eventually. And if we look towards our future, and we can't just think about today and in the moment, we have to think about down the line. And, you know, you're right, Mark, I think like the high school is going to be consideration down the line, but if we don't do anything to East Meadow, so is East Meadow. And like if we all of a sudden go with 6, then we're now dealing with, okay, we get this nice new building, but now we're going to need something at East Meadow and the high school, versus if we went with 5B, at least, like someone said, two-thirds are taken care of, so.
And I think in the interim in this building, there's a lot of cosmetic stuff that could be done to this building that would give it a facelift, that would make it more attractive.
Maybe it's, but the hemorrhaging's really happening at 6th grade, I think is where we're losing the kids. Here's a question for you that I don't know the answer to, it's not rhetorical, is, say we do 6, is that the one I'm saying? Say we do 6, and we know we have to do something with East Meadow. Does the NSBA say, when we come back and say 5 years, do they say no?
No,
We're not-
they wouldn't say no. First of all, hopefully they still have the program. Second of all, that you're in line and you wait till you come up in the queue, that they look at it and say, yeah, you need it, and you can participate.
And granted, so I mean, it's not like we couldn't do anything to
No, I
East
mean,
Meadow down the line.
yeah, no, you could
Probably a
easily.
10-year thing.
The Newtons and
Mark,
Brookline's
you
get in
also have
line
to
every
understand,
year.
when Marta was talking about if you're only going to address pre-K through 3, MSBA may say, no, we're not going to approve that option.
That's what I said.
And that's what you said, because the chances are you're putting money in there, but then you still have the core building.
The educators aren't gonna like it, but they let us put it in the study, so it was unusual.
They did accept it in the statement of
Yeah.
interest, which is
Right.
unusual, but they accepted it, so they're willing to look at it both ways.
And I know it's going to be hard, but I have a hard time just picking, to have my taxes go up for 200-something kids and thinking again that we're picking the cheapest option because we think we can pass it. I think we just have to get behind the bigger option to take care of both of those schools, what that option talked about, and go for it. Do our best effort. I mean, the last project only failed by 60 votes. Think about it. That was big. Failed by 60 votes. I know things change. You know, the school system needs a boost here, and I would think that we just get behind it, look at the funds, firm up the costs. As Joe said, look at what money we're going to put in out of our stabilization funds that's sitting there with a plan, and this is the plan is for, to fix 2 of our schools, take care of 2 schools, and go for it. And if we give it our best effort, and people can't do it, well, we gave it our best effort. And then the town is and this is a real crossroads to me for the future of our town, I think. East Meadow's 50 years old this year. It served us 50 years. It's still a good school. Why wouldn't we want to fix it? Why wouldn't we want to renovate and fix it and take care of this? And yeah, the high school's an issue, but we're going to have to deal with it. town's got to put some, say, each time to say, we've got to start fixing things, as Judy said. Fix this, fix that, and get in line for some other things. But we can't do everything at one time. At least this has always been the plan. We've done all these other things, and I can't believe that we are probably the only town in the state that has not taken any MSBA money. It's about time we end that drought.
It's not probably, Jim, it is.
It is. I remember sitting with Catherine Craving years ago, and she knew Granby wasn't the only one.
Hamilton hasn't either.
But I don't think it's an issue of, are we going to take MSB, we're going to build one school or the other. That's the issue. We're either going to build this school, which we can push through in, the smaller school, push that through as a touchdown, or stretch a little bit and build a pre-K through 6. And
This is pay me now or pay me later.
I
And
think
this
you
is
gotta
pay me
pick which
more.
one makes the most sense for Granby, and then sell it.
Right.
That's right.
Even
Go
though
out
it's
there
going to
and
be
say that
difficult, it can be done.
This is the best.
And we
move
can't
for
let
Granby.
those old traumas and wounds that we have from years ago affect how you proceed. You have to take risks. And
Yeah, but there is a financial implication here, and when you get to double digits, what I was trying to propose was, if we take a hard look at the financials, does John's 10% become 8% for the reno? That's what I'm trying to get at. If you factor in these real cost savings, does it change the dynamic?
And that's the critical part. I'm still not sure that I understand the true cost, even closely, of any one of these options. And as John said before, for a town like ours, $1 million difference makes a lot of difference. So what is the opportunity for us to be able to firm up the numbers that we are looking at right now, to have a more realistic set of numbers? Even if we decide to go with whatever the majority seems to be supporting right now, and I like the 5B option, but it would really help for us to get some comfort in our minds if we see some numbers that are closer to reality than, because we're working on 50% assumption. I look at our papers, we're starting with a base of 57%. I know that some of these options, like option 7, actually is beyond whatever we are seeing on that paper, because it's going to require additional costs if we demolish certain things, even more so. So how can we get closer to those numbers for us to be able to make a more educated decision at the end?
And Emery, I don't think you can do that until you get the schematic design phase. We're still in just general ideas.
This is still a concept.
This
Right.
is just,
The
general idea right now.
The estimators are taking a square foot number and multiplying it times a historical construction value.
Right, but for instance, it might not be the correct number, but it seems like at least somewhere there's a note that says, from the previous version of 5B to the current one, there's a 4,000 square feet difference.
We can find that,
Yes. So,
absolutely.
Even those could be critical factors for us to make a better decision.
I mean, since you can't really decide until DEP makes a ruling, we can take the two options and
Study them further and sharpen the pencils and come back and say, okay, this is what we think at this point in time. We're looking at dollars.
and factor in some operating costs.
Sure.
All right, so it's 8:21 right now. We really don't have anything else on the agenda.
I just want to throw one thing at the other
Okay.
On the timeline for the proposed vote, presidential primary is March 1st right now, 2016.
Yeah.
We want to try and tie a vote on this for the presidential primary to try and get a larger population out to do it.
That'll be that.
Because I checked with Kathy Kilbrick, and right now, March 1st is basically pushed over there.
So March 7th, you said March 1st?
No, March 14th is his vote. I'm saying March 1st.
Yeah, it'll be a couple weeks old.
Yeah.
But this is special town meeting. The other one is ballot box.
Ballot box on there is the March 14th, it says special vote.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yep.
versus town meeting. Town meeting would occur in February
Okay.
with a vote scheduled for the 1st, along with the primary.
So we're not voting in November or something like that, we're voting in
We're voting March, or in this, we're voting March.
Because the DEP response didn't come in time, we just.
All right.
This has us going in, putting in on June 11th for the Facilities Assessment Committee, the preferred schematic report. We're missing the April 16th date, because it's like next week. So we don't have a preferred schematic.
But Alan, would that work?
That works time-wise. That works time-wise, because we're going to be coming out of MSBA with their approval of schematic design and a project funding agreement on January 27th. So, yeah, you have 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, the selling, if you will, for lack of a better word, the education of the Granby taxpayers has to happen now. Well, this way before this.
Has to happen when you go into schematic.
When you go into the schematic that we're...
When do we do that?
We start that once we get a schematic done, which is scheduled into... It starts in June, it ends in September, October.
Basically, it starts after you meet with the FAS, right? Schematic.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, no, that's already paid for. Okay.
Right, that's already, you've already funded that. That's, you're paid up to the end of this
All
schedule.
right, so let's talk about where we're going next with this. I mean,
Well, we're waiting for DEP, you know, that's the tipping point that decides, okay, you know, are we staying here, are we going back to West Street, what are we doing? But we can, the design team can go back and take a look at the refinements they made and tighten up on the square foot numbers, the dollars per square foot numbers that they presented, and come back and just show you what we have.
For those two schemes, we
For those
can't do- we don't want to
those
do it
two
for all of
solutions,
them.
at least we've narrowed it down.
I think we're there.
We're getting there.
Unless we end up at West Street.
That's only with DEP. I think that we'd end up, and maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't think we were going back.
No, that's only with a
Yes.
bad DEP.
That's a bad, yeah.
Because what I'm trying to figure out here is when we're ready to make a decision. It seems like seems like everybody's reasoning is pretty developed, I guess. And I don't mean to say that, maybe people have made up their minds, but I mean, I feel like they're not making up their minds on superficial things. I mean, everybody has a very well thought out reason for what they think. So
Let me give you a time frame that I think it has to be made up by, in order to meet the schedule that's in front of you, is that the design team needs to spend some time putting this together to get the first schematic report in. I think they need to have an answer before the start of May, but by the end of April,
So
at the very latest.
are we meeting next week? And if we are meeting next week, is everybody agreeable to making a decision on this?
Can you have numbers by next week?
The only problem with meeting next week
Why
is
don't
it is East Meadow's open house, and it is cast as a community event to celebrate its 50th birthday.
Okay, so maybe 2 weeks?
And
is
it
good.
might be good if we could schedule it after the 24th. We'll
After
have
the-
verbal reports that we can.
All right, so
That's right, yeah,
I
the
just want to
CDC,
set up
yeah.
so
right.
it's,
We'll know if it's a disaster. They pull up the thing and it's broken. We'll know something before they don't ask us.
So it'll be the 30th.
So April 30th?
okay.
We're waiting. Is that a Thursday?
Is it Thursday? Okay.
Is that okay, Joe?
I think we're April.
Not next week, you're saying, is that 3 weeks out, or?
This is after school vacation.
Yeah, it would be after they come and
They were looking for after the
dig.
24th.
Yeah.
Back to East
Be the first Thursday.
Yeah, we're going to be at West Street,
Okay,
right?
so we'll go back to West Street, and so everybody, just to be clear, we're expecting that we're going to vote at that time, so if you
Yes.
can't make it, your voice will not be heard.
So what do we need to make a decision? We're going to hear from DEP, we're going to have some updated numbers. I think we need another clear crack at the financials. Unless, John, you're...
I'll put together some displays on what the overall financial.
Okay, that'd be good.
What the overall tax.
6 o'clock, West Street?
6:30.
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, unless you want to be there early and meet with Henry. Appreciate his clothing.
Did you get that Granby
I was more dressed up too, but I decided.
Sets the bar high.
Not since he's wearing my jacket right now. We have two jackets that are actually identical. And he probably also has a navy blue blazer like I do too.
So as you can imagine, this weekend I'm going shopping.
I'll be right with him.
There was a question that Chris asked last meeting, I'm not sure if it was in session or not, but how did Granby come up with their reimbursement rate? And we did do some research on that. That there's a base percentage rate of 31 percentage points that to start with, and then it adds the community income factor, the community poverty wealth factor, the community the community property wealth factor, community poverty factor, and incentive percentages. And those are all in charts that tell you, okay, average for Massachusetts above or below on a percentage, and it's cumulative. So that's how the formula is derived, and I have this if anybody wants to see it. I sent Chris a copy of it as well. But everybody's just, if Granby people that are not here want to know, how do we come up with 57%?
We've had that question asked before.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know myself, so I had to go back and research and find out. But that's the formula.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Could you share that with the committee? So
Put it in the Dropbox.
Is there land wealth here?
Yeah, property wealth factor. Yeah. So I'll
We're really rich. We're really rich here.
For people who don't have kids.
Yeah.
Those are broad factors, that doesn't show what Granby's.
It doesn't show
position on-
Granby's. It tells this is just a formula. This is how it's derived. But I
DOR
can't
has the
point to
wealth
where you fall on the property wealth or the poverty
DOR has the
or
wealth.
I don't know where you're.
I think
it would be good for our education, number one. Number two, we know that, even though we're talking about 57% right now, our hope is still that we're going to go higher than that.
We're going to get up there as high as we can, and even though we're going to have some things that aren't eligible, that we're going to have to pay full price on.
Thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.